Today we talked about equivalent decimals and comparing those decimals. Equivalent decimals are pretty much saying the same thing with a different name. We did the same thing in the last unit with those fractions. So when you're asked for, or when they're asked for equivalent decimals tonight, it goes like this. You push your decimal point. Now, since there's a 7 in the tens place, I'm going to keep that 7 in the tens place. But this time I want to add a 0 onto it. 7 tenths and 70 hundredths are exactly the same number, just a different way of saying it. I told the kids to think of it like saying I have 7 dimes versus 70 pennies. Both of them are 70 cents. Even if I added on another 0. So this has 700, so now this becomes 700 thousandths. Those are still equivalent. No matter how many zeros I add on to the end of it, those are equivalent. What is not equivalent is if I do something like this. If I put a 0 in front of it, I change the placement of that 7. The 7 is now in the hundredths place, not the tens place. So that is not equivalent. The same thing works with multiple numbers. So in this case, we have 68 thousandths. To have another number equivalent to it, still keep my 0 in the front, still keep my 6 in the hundredths place, my 8 is still in the thousandths place, and I'm just going to add a 0 onto it in the 10 thousandths place. So 68 thousandths and 680 10 thousandths are exactly the same. What you'll also see tonight on their homework will be dealing with comparing those decimals. Now, off of first hand, you're always thinking about, well, which number is bigger? If you were to look at it without the decimals, you see 8 and 25. They have to make sure that they don't jump right into it and say, well, I know that 25 is bigger than 8, so therefore 25 hundredths is the bigger number. We have to look at it two ways, and I'll tell them these two ways. First, we want to look at our decimal places. So I'm going to start off with my tenths place. I see 8 tenths and I see 2 tenths. 8 tenths is bigger than 2 tenths, so therefore 8 tenths is bigger than 25 hundredths. Now there's another way of doing this too. I think a lot of the kids love this way because it makes it a little bit simpler for them. Going back up here to equivalent decimals, 8 tenths, if I were to change it into hundredths, it's the same thing as 80 hundredths. Since 25 is already in the hundredths, we just made 8 tenths into 80 hundredths, so now we can do that comparison. I know that 80 is bigger than 25, so 80 hundredths, or 8 tenths as they originally started out, is bigger than 25 hundredths.